call the Wednesday, November 19th, 2025 Public Works Commission meeting to order. The first item is the agenda itself. Asking for a motion to approve the agenda with an amendment to pull the Queen City Bridge stop sign item from the consent agenda and have it as a separate agenda item as 4.1. So that would be the proposed motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second? Great. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Excellent. Next up is public forum. We do have a lot of folks here tonight for public forum, so we ask that folks be brief, but we will be having a timer to make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity to speak. I don't know who's first on the sign-up sheet, whoever.
I don't know if anyone has signed up in person yet. We have one person, David Wilbur.
Yes.
And for others, I don't know if we want to pass this around for those that
Yeah,
want to speak.
yeah.
Or
So if you want to go ahead, David,
Okay.
feel free to come up to the mic and.
Fine, thank you.
just for public forum, so any item you want. Now's the time.
David, if it's for the sign, you may want to wait.
No, this is what public forum right now is
This is
for.
about the stop
It's
sign.
public forum for any particular item. So if you wanted to speak about that,
He's here for the bridge.
yeah, that's fine.
That's why
Yep.
I'm here. That's why I'm here. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is David Wilbur. I live at 90 Central Avenue, South Burlington. I live in Queen City Park. It's a neighborhood of over 80 households. We use that bridge every day, sometimes many times a day. It's part of our way of getting out of our community into Shelburne Road. I've lived in Queen City Park for 47 years. I've never had a problem with crossing the bridge. I've never had a problem of seeing any accidents. I've never had any problems whatsoever. I think people left to their own can figure out the best way to deal with the cars and the situation. Many times it's better to have 2 or 3 cars go through at one time. I'm afraid that this stop sign is going to cause more delays and congestion at the bridge rather than less. And I think that the decision's pretty much been made, but nonetheless, I'd like to express my opposition to it. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Next up, we'd like to speak on this particular, or any comment?
I actually am here,
Yeah, please feel free to come up to
actually
mic.
here about one of the consent items.
Great.
So, okay, just to make a comment.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Ann Vivian, I'm an architect working with First Congregational Church, 38 South Winooski. And we are trying to modify part of the building to have a childcare there operated by One Arts. And it's for infants, and we've been talking to the city about a loading zone outside the area. The area of the building is around the corner on Buell Street, about as far removed from the rest of the doors to the church as could possibly be. So we'd, and that will be the yard that they use for play yard, so we'd really like to have it there. I think the proposal in front of you today, consent item, is a really great compromise. It's very close to the gate, to the new yard, and still on Buell Street, which I think is important to connect the two. So,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, whoever would like to come up.
Yeah, same, so the One Lane Bridge, I'm Tom Piper, I live in the same Queen City Park neighborhood as Mr. Wilbur, and have driven over the bridge so many thousands of times, it would be impossible to count. The incidents of misbehavior or irritation are in the less than 0.5%, maybe less than that. Almost always people are courteous and relatively efficient. Not everybody, kind of knows the rule, as it were, of 2 cars or sometimes 3 going and then letting the other side go. But everybody eventually figures it out. Stop signs would be a really counterproductive solution. There have been more productive solutions being circulated amongst community members, such as a suggestion under the yield sign saying, let 2 cars go or let 3 cars go, and then alternate. Things like that would be far better. Not only will the stop signs cause more congestion, they will undoubtedly lead to more irritation and more people misbehaving, as it were. So definitely not the right solution. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else for public comment?
About the same item, the stop signs on the bridge. The
You could also just state your name.
my name is Peter Gehring, and I live in Queen City Park, so I'm actually not a Burlington voter. But the idea of putting stop signs there, the traffic flow is highly irregular, right? So for most of the day, there's zero traffic there. So if you're putting stop signs there, people going in both directions are going to have to stop without, I mean, there's good visibility in both directions. There aren't lots of incidents of accidents. There never have been, never will be. You can see pretty far ahead. So the question of stop sign to meter traffic makes little sense, because when you are lined up, if let's say you're lined up at the busy 1 hour of the day, either end of the day, where you have 3 or 4 cars in front of you, there would be no precedent for if 2 cars arriving at the stop sign at the same time who's got the right of way to go, because it's head on. So we're going to just end up in snarls of traffic. And then in the off hours, we're going to have to stop, slow down for 25 miles an hour to 0, make a full stop, otherwise suffer the fate of traffic enforcement at that spot. So if there's a way to change it or just leave it as it is, I've been there 14 years and it seems to work pretty well as it is. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else in person for public comment? Jack?
Good evening. Jack Tiano, I live in Ward 5. Really brief, off-the-cuff comments. I came to the TUC last month and kind of gave a similar spiel on partially the same topic of recycling, which is on the agenda tonight, but I also see that there's like the paving plan and sidewalk plan, and the gist of what I said, which is not less important, mainly at the city councilors who I think, what I said was I think we need to support our Department of Public Works better, whether that means with the political will to do the things that they need to do and financially with resources to do these things. I know that generally I've been really pleased with how the Public Works Commission itself supports that mission as well. But just looking at the needs and my desire, I know a lot of people want to see recycling stay within the city. I also read every report and I understand how much that strains the resources and the capacity and the prioritization of the Department of Public Works. I know we've had rough, tough budgeting years the past couple of years, but as a city that is needing and wanting to grow and is kind of growing in ways that is hard to do in the right ways sometimes, I think a strong and well-resourced Department of Public Works is fundamental to that. And one, just kind of to tie it into some different things that are on the agenda tonight with the paving and sidewalks. I didn't have a chance to like really dig into it, but just kind of a brief skimming of kind of the upcoming paving projects. One thing to think about as a city, as a commission, as a department, when we're planning these projects is to think about them a little bit more holistically. I know we've kind of, again, struggled to prioritize with limited resources how we choose these projects and what we put on them. Again, I don't know exactly what the details are, but there's some big names on that. And then upcoming years like South Union, which has been a key bike corridor that we've been trying to figure out what to do with. I don't know what the plans are for that, but thinking about, I would rather see us take a couple of those lower priority streets off of the plan and reallocate some of that money towards doing some of the key corridors correctly or to a higher degree. When we think about kind of neighborhood streets to a certain extent, especially roads without a lot of commercial aspect or commercial aspects to them, or for lower residential or lower density residential zones. Those are, in a way, extended driveways. And while I don't think we should not ever pave those, I think as we're trying to think about how we prioritize our resources as a growing city, it makes more sense to me to increase the transportation access by kind of thinking about how we strategically prioritize this. So anyway, just some thoughts, some things. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Anyone else in person for public comment? Yep. Feel free to go ahead to the mic.
My name is Linda Looney. I live on Green Acres. You might have received an email from one of my neighbors, Al Wagner, earlier today. There is a scoping, pedestrian scoping study report that has been done to try to put a designated bike lane, something along our road. And I'm just here to say that there wasn't, the information that was given to you didn't show all the opposition that the community itself has to that. Just as a point, I am a walker. I walk my dog twice a day, and I walk them I walk her during rush hour. There is no reason to put a designated bike lane, spend the money there. We have a very safe street. There hasn't been any reports of accidents ever on that street. This resident, Al Wagner, who sent you the email, he's lived there for over 20 years, hasn't seen any problems or issues. So we feel that that information should be presented to you when you're making some kind of a decision like that. Again, if it's an issue with speeding, we have Tracy Drive, which has speed bumps. We can do something like that. There is no reason to put, as the original scoping study was 100 of those bollards up along one side of our street. My question is too, if you put those bollards up on one side of the street, who's inside those bollards? Is it a kid on a bike? Is it a walker? Is it somebody walking a dog, or is it a bicyclist? And so here we are in an 8-foot designated strip, and all those people are on that strip. Well, that to me speaks to be more hazardous than just the way that our street operates now, where people slow down. People know that they're on that street. We're not a through street. We go curve around and go down Cottage Grove, and then Cottage Grove to Gray Meadow. And initially, one of the things that was said was they wanted it to be a pathway to the bike path. Well, Tracy Drive is a way to get to the bike path. Star Farm is a way to get to the bike path. We're sort of a circuitous route. I would suggest when I walk my dog, the most dangerous part of my walk, I go down Green Acres towards the back. I go around through Lawaldo, and then I come down Cottage Grove, or I reverse it the other way, depending on which way she decides she wants to go. But the side of Cottage Grove that backs up to Lawaldo, the overgrown growth on that street extends 4 to 5 feet out into the road. So I'm walking into the road, and I find that when I'm in the presence of vehicles, the place where I have the most issue with vehicles is not on Green Acres. It's on Cottage Grove, and they're going fast. And that's coming out of Gray Meadow. So one of the things that our community and our neighborhood had suggested as an option for this to slow down, since we're not a through street, and apparently I've only been in the community for 10 years, but was told that the intersection at the end of Cottage Grove to Gray Meadow was originally supposed to be a dead end. And it's not. So one of our suggestions was, well, put up ways that pedestrians can get through, but block that off. That would solve all the problems. Either that or speed bumps. There is no reason to put sidewalks in. There is no reason to put bike lanes in. If you're concerned about people riding their bikes there, put a share the road sign. I mean, this is not, to me, it's spending money that's not necessary. It's finding a solution for a problem that doesn't exist.
Great, thank you. Thanks.
My name is Lucy Yankowski. I grew up in Queen City Park. I still live in Queen City Park. I've traveled that bridge all my life, even when it was a wooden trestle bridge. I am so upset with this city right now. I've been fighting that stupid damn road for 40 years. It's a bad design. It's not going to do what you think it is. And you've endangered the lives of my neighborhood ever since you started building that road. And now you've closed off Pine Street and you've endangered our lives even more because we have one way in and out of our neighborhood, and that is Queen City Park Road. And no, Queen City Park Road does not go to Home Avenue, contrary to what you all believe and thought you'd try to change the name of that part of the road. And we are having more issues with safety because you closed off Pine Street and you confused everybody trying to go south. So they don't know how to get there anymore. They should be using Home Avenue. You should be forcing them to use Home Avenue so they're not coming around by our way. The businesses on Industrial Drive have always used Queen City Park Road. The residents over on the backside of Oakledge Park in the Dunder Road area have used our road when they want to go south. So you need to cut back the traffic. That will help mitigate it, make it a little safer for our neighborhood and for the businesses that are on Industrial Drive when the employees are trying to leave or go to work. And the stop sign would be a very bad idea, as a lot of my other neighbors have said, because people are not going to stop. They don't stop for red lights. They're not going to stop for a stop sign. I got hit on that bridge because of somebody who didn't even read the signs that said very clearly, say, 1-lane bridge, yield to oncoming traffic. And then there's on both sides, then it says bikes may use the full lane. So, yeah, it's a big problem. You need to reopen Pine Street.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else in person before we go to see if anyone's online for public comment? Great. Rob, anyone online for public comment?
Blaine Martin, you're up in queue.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you. My name is Blaine Martin. I'm a resident of Green Acres Drive. Also speaking about the pedestrian pilot project that's on the agenda in the memo from the staff. Wanted to express my concern about the potential pedestrian pilot. In particular, the data that I think my neighbor Al Wagner emailed, the details that for his data, which was limited only to Green Acres Drive residents, 94% of us are opposed to the plan. If you look at the engineering study that was done, that includes a broader group of individuals that were surveyed across, I guess, the 3 streets in the scoping study. Majority of Green Acres a majority of all respondents were also opposed to sidewalks on Green Acres. So a minority in either case of those surveyed are opposed to the project. The proposal feels like, as a resident who lives on Green Acres, it feels like a sort of solution in search of a problem. You can look in the engineering study. Many people expressed their concern about the carryover effects that this would have in terms of parking, reducing Green Acres Drive. If we take 8 feet for a pedestrian zone and all cars are parked on the other street where there's significant driveways, so it does limit the amount of street parking. Essentially, you've reduced Green Acres Drive to a 1-lane road, which presents a whole host of problems, including for recycle collection, trash collection, trucks, just two-way traffic would be snarled. And there's a potential that, because there's such a shortage of parking, once you move everything to one side of the street and exclude driveways, there's not really going to be anywhere to get over for a trash truck or a recycle truck or a delivery truck. So would just ask you to carefully consider this before moving ahead with a pilot project. As Linda, my neighbor, noted, we haven't had a problem, and we don't really. Just my perception in the neighborhood is we don't want to create winners and losers in the neighborhood in terms of one side of the street losing their ability to park in front of their house, or having unsightly bollards or cones in front of their house, and then other potential parking conflicts. So just would ask you for your careful consideration of this issue. Thanks.
Ben Traverse, you are up.
There, Ben Travers. I'm the city councilor that represents Ward 5 there in the south end, and at least the Burlington side of the one-lane bridge on your agenda this evening. I appreciate the opportunity to participate in public forum. My role as the city council for this neighborhood, I've had a number of neighbors reach out to me with concerns about current traffic patterns along the bridge. I will tell you, though, that all of these concerns have been coming in since the closure of Pine Street. And I anticipate and think that you should keep this in mind as you're considering the item this evening, that as soon as the Champlain Parkway opens and allows that as the on-ramp onto 189 to get in and out of the city, that the current traffic issues that are present on the one-lane bridge are going to go away. This is why when I, advocating for constituents who were concerned, originally reached out to DPW, I was asking into whether or not there were any temporary devices that could be installed until the Champlain Parkway was opened. I understand in responses back from DPW that there may be good reasons as to why, for example, a temporary traffic light would not work, as folks, particularly on one side, may back up at a red light and be in the way of Arthur Court and folks turning in and out of that street. But I will be curious in hearing the discussion on this topic to hear from the experts as to why a long-term change to 2 stop signs on either side is the best fix at this point in time for an item that is likely going to face another huge shift again once the Champlain Parkway opens. I do think that the biggest issue at the moment, as compared to what is normal for this bridge, is that you now more often have 2 cars approaching the bridge at the same time. As someone who uses the bridge myself quite often, that's not something that happened very frequently until Pine Street was closed, until the Champlain Parkway project is complete. Now that you do have 2 cars approaching at the same time, the issue, and I understand the confusion, is that both sides of the bridge say yield to oncoming traffic. Well, who's oncoming when 2 cars arrive at the same time? So I do wonder again whether or not to address that confusion. A permanent change to dual stop signs on either side is the best course, and look forward to hearing the experts on the item this evening. I appreciate your taking this on this evening. Thank you so much.
Very much.
Jeanette Basevius.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jeanette Basevius, and I live in Queen City Park as well. And I use the one-way bridge all of the time. And I am against permanent stop signs going in. I think it's a really bad idea. I advocate for keeping the yield signs there, and with the possibility of an addition that says 3 to 4 cars can pass at a time. Something like that, but totally against stop signs going in. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents as someone who uses that one-way bridge many times a day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's all we've got in queue.
Great. With that, we'll close public forum and move on to the consent agenda with everything listed on there except for 4.3 of the Queen City Bridge stop sign. So motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
Second.
Great. Any discussion? I'll just share that in case folks didn't see the email, I did forward an email from City Councilor Litwin, who spoke in support of 4.5 on the consent agenda. With the motion in the second, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Aye for myself?
Aye. Aye.
Aye for yourself, Daniel?
Yes.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, there, Jake.
So now we'll do 4.3 Queen City Bridge stop sign. Philip, if you wanted to come up and talk.
Thanks, Corey. Excellent. Thank you. Philip Peterson, Senior Transportation Engineer and Planner with Public Works. I did send an email earlier to the commissioners to kind of provide a little bit of context, and so I'll kind of go through those bullet points briefly. I think from an engineering standpoint, the yield control is not inherently inappropriate for a one-lane bridge. But what this is about isn't necessarily about yield being bad. It's about conditions changing, right? So we do have this detour, right? The stop control is a standard, uncomplicated tool to create predictable alternating flow. It is about that and safety for all road users. So a lot of the folks that have commented are folks that are familiar with this condition. They're familiar with the bridge, and that's not the only folks that we want to consider here. There's people that are unfamiliar and aren't really, aware of the courtesies that folks kind of give each other when they're approaching the bridge and there's this yield condition. So the proposed local courtesy so many cars can go through it's not an MUTCD enforceable sign. It's not something that we can use. So although the suggestion is understandable, I think what a sign like that would do is just create more confusion. It wouldn't really provide clarity. It would just kind of confuse the situation. I think either control could function, but under the current detour conditions, which, we can say, well, the Champlain Parkway is going to finish on this date, but we don't know that, right? So this isn't, in our mind, a temporary change right now. It can be a permanent one. When the time is right, we can monitor and look at potential changes back to a yield condition, but the stop control provides clear expectations and reduces variability in driver behavior. So the yield condition did not fail, but the current conditions are kind of materially different from typical operations, and stop control offers more predictable pattern for all road users. Happy to answer questions.
Great. Thank you, Philip. Commissioner comments on this. Commissioner Hayes, would you like to go first?
Thank you for taking a look at it and evaluating it. I know a couple of us brought this issue up at the last meeting just to get a look at it to see if there would be anything that could be done in terms of the signage or the way I was looking at it as a user of that street multiple times a day. I have a kid who I take to school and pick up. So I'm very familiar with it. I think in large part, it works very well. People understand, how to yield to each other. I think sometimes there are misunderstandings and people treat it like a stop sign, but for the most part, I think it works well. Obviously, the increased volume has introduced, some potential safety concerns. I am not sure that adding a stop sign is going to alleviate safety. I actually think it might introduce some more aggressive behavior for people who are used to the yield and not wanting to stop, or when you have a stop sign and perceive that it shouldn't be there, that could introduce a negative behavior. I'm also concerned that like others have said, the Champlain Parkway is going to be open in hopefully late spring, summer. This is a temporary, a problem, and I expect volume to go down drastically. And will a stop sign still be warranted? I know you said that we could take a look at that, and it might, be temporary. I think going from yield to stop to yield may introduce more confusion and frustration among drivers. My hope was, and as a question for you, I was thinking more in terms of kind of an education campaign, or something along the lines of explaining what the yield means. I know you're saying that there isn't a yield sign that is MUTCD approved that would explain 3 cars at a time, but in the same way that you communicated to everyone who showed up through Front Porch Forum, through even the lighted signs that say the change that's happening on 1120, is there a way that we could have some kind of explanation of what yield means in the short term?
I mean, I guess I would say if you have a driver's license, you should know what a yield.
I agree with you. I know what yield means.
I'm not trying to
but-
be contrite.
No,
I would say, in terms of your other comments, I understand what you mean, having concerns about folks getting frustrated with a traffic condition. I mean, any of those things are possible when we introduce a new traffic control device, and there's a change in condition, but as engineers, we just kind of have data to go off of, and we have to make decisions based on these are the site conditions. And so that's kind of how we make that decision. But is it my answering your question?
In
Questions?
terms of being able to educate folks, and I know that you're saying that people should know what yield means.
Right, sure.
Although, it can be a little bit confusing when there are cars arriving at the same time. Is there anything that could be done in that capacity that might educate folks who are especially not familiar and using it while the Champlain Parkway is still underway, but not necessarily putting in stop signs which feel more permanent and may not be necessary for the long term?
I'm not sure how we would go about doing that in terms of a yield condition. That, our messaging, when you're thinking about signage and how we communicate with the public, has to be very simple and concise and quick. We can't have, lengthy explanations on signs, or, we can post information that folks can read. But what we can put in the public right away is relatively limited, and how we direct people. So,
Okay. Let me just make sure. So there is a stop sign currently. If you're going towards Shelburne Road, there's a stop sign at Red Rocks Park. And then you're suggesting another stop sign not too far away from that. Do you know how many feet would be between those 2 stop signs?
there's a stop condition you're talking about on Central Ave? Right. Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure what the number is for that. Off the
Okay.
top of my head.
It's about 400 feet.
Yeah.
It's about 400 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay.
Google Maps.
No, look at you. Again, I guess that is, I think, what is it, 200 feet, the minimum distance for stop signs. So it's definitely within that threshold. But again, when you're stopping and then going and then expected to stop again, another concern I have with just how that's going to function. So
Right. And technically, when you have a yield sign, a lot of times you do have to stop.
correct.
Yield
Correct.
does mean stop.
Yeah.
So that doesn't preclude a stop condition.
Right. Right. And I think for the most part, it's functional and it works. It's just the increased volume is what we're seeing, the current frustrations. So I appreciate your feedback. I am still hesitant on supporting stop signs at this time.
Sure.
City Engineer
Hi,
Wheelock.
yes. We haven't been formally introduced.
Yeah.
I'm Laura Wheelock, city engineer. I do want to give context to your 400 feet. Our city downtown grid is 400 feet on center. So the stop signs in the downtown, you go from Maple Street to King Street or in any other place, that is 400 feet. So our residents are actually exceptionally used to that kind of stopping condition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, Commissioner Hayes? Commissioner Montano?
Yeah, I guess I have a brief question maybe for the city engineer. What actually has been the traffic fold change with this detour? Like how many more people are on that route that
Yep.
would necessitate a change in the traffic control device?
So the traffic volumes on Queen City Park Road have actually fluctuated pretty greatly. The traffic volumes that we are seeing right now are about the same as we saw in 2008 when we first started studying the structure to widen the bridge or replace the structure. Just before the parkway opened, those volumes were down around 1,500 vehicles a day, so about 1,000 less than what people were experiencing in the previous times. And now with the parkway having closed off Pine Street, we're back up around 2,500 vehicles a day. So it's a condition that actually people who've been around for a while would have saw around 2008, but it certainly feels different pretty abruptly having had Pine Street be closed.
Right. And importantly, as I already mentioned, a lot of those folks, they're not locals. They're not used to that condition, the yield condition, and the local courtesy that folks do have for each other.
Right. I think I understand. Right. It's more about the type of people driving on that route versus the traffic itself changing. Although I have a feeling the yield sign is pretty universal around the planet. But granted, one-lane bridges more common in some areas of Vermont than other places. And I don't know, my gut judgment is the yield sign might still be good. So
Great.
I don't know.
To answer a technical component, either device can work there. However, the concerns that we had been receiving about the experience and the condition around the structure has led to our recommendation to try a different control device at this moment.
Thank you. Any other comments, Commissioner Montano?
No, thank you, everybody.
Great. Commissioner Barr?
Sure. I did read through the documents, and I was just curious, and you kind of answered that for me, City Engineer Wheelock, that the change has really brought us back to what 2008 was before, with the closure of Pine Street. But I did also see that the crash history or those kind of things is relatively low. So I'm curious, because I didn't see a lot of input of people asking to do this. So the impetus for why we would change the traffic device from the yield to the stop sign, just to try it?
Yes, we could provide those records. We received a lot of them actually through our Parkway outreach consultant, is where a lot of that currently lives, from just the change in experience on the street and people traveling that as a new route for themselves. We have a few that have come through our local counselors that they have shared the record and the information, and a few that have come in directly,
okay.
Which took us to investigate it. And then, having provided the notice, those folks actually haven't returned, but we have now heard from a few of the new neighbors that are opposed to it.
Okay. And that was pretty much it. I wanted to hear both sides. Yeah. Thanks.
Commissioner O'Neill Vivanco?
Hi there. I did just poll my 16-year-old who's in driver's ed at BHS about what a yield sign is. She answered correctly. So to whomever made the comment about most of us know what a yield sign is, I think it was Commissioner Mutano perhaps. Right, if everyone obeyed the law, probably half the work on the commission would come to us. So a question I have is, so in the memo about the stop sign, in the memo you indicate that when there was a temporary traffic signal, and I know the traffic signals require the clearance and all that, but it caused frustration and it caused motorists to begin ignoring the temporary signals altogether, running red lights and creating unsafe travel conditions. That's from the memo. What's to say that this isn't going to happen with the stop sign?
I mean,
It will.
that's a good point. That's true. But it is what our analysis is recommending. So what people will do and how they behave, I mean, it's a true point.
The challenge with a temporary signal
So-
is
I'm sorry.
yeah,
The
is that you end
camera
up
didn't move. I'm sorry, Laura.
No, it's still
Go ahead.
we're having some seating challenges in the room tonight. So the one of the other differences with the temporary signal is that drivers are asked to wait. What's sometimes, especially with no opposing vehicle, is going to be a lot longer of a delay, and that's where you start to see a driver aggressive behavior and a non-compliance as you come up to this temporary stoplight, which has a lot of technical difficulties that usually come with them. And a lot more delay. And so that's where you see a lot more of the lack of compliance versus someone who's coming up to a stop sign and yielding under, a reasonable emotional state and saying, I'm going to rolling stop through this versus like hard stop.
Right.
So, and as it relates to the compliance with the stop signs, the way that we are introduced to this as engineers is you got to expect the first couple of weeks to get a lot of non-compliance. And it's not because people aren't going to want to stop. It's because their brains don't see the sign. So that's why we've put the message boards out there. That's why you actually give people a grace period before you start enforcing stop signs, because their brains just don't see it. I can tell you I've been ticketed for rolling through a stop sign in Burlington that was put up on Decatur Street before I worked here. And Burlington enforced that within the first 3 days of it going up. So it just happens. It's just human nature to make those kinds of mistakes.
Especially for folks who use that road regularly and have used it with the yield sign. I do wonder, is there another traffic calming device or system that we could consider on one side? I don't know, because I'm not a traffic engineer, but in my brain, I know, Laura, you're just like, I know, Peggy. But I think, but I use that road a fair amount, biking and driving. I love going to the park. So, and I wonder kind of the approach to on Queen City Park Road, is there a way to slow that traffic down? So at least there's more of a slow, although would the sight lines be clear enough so that there's a yield, but you have traffic that's slowing down instead of trying to kind of thread the needle?
Yeah, I do think that this structure in particular is more challenging than some of the others that exist around Vermont. It's a much longer structure. And so I would be nervous about trying to give one direction priority over the other direction, because you're going to find that in the crossing time that it takes to get across this structure, that an opposing vehicle is highly likely, especially during peak hours, even after the parkway opens and we're back down to probably even a much lower traffic volume.
I wouldn't say this is necessarily a traffic calming issue. I don't think speeding across the bridge is a problem. High accelerations. I think the issue here is assigning proper right-of-way and making it clear what the traffic condition is. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it absolutely clear what the traffic condition is and what the right-of-way is.
Right. So at a stop sign, so at a four-way stop, for which we have many here in Burlington, if you're from maybe a certain region of the United States, you get to the stop sign and you think you got there first. You assume you got there first, and you go. When in fact there's actually a protocol. I didn't ask my 16-year-old about who's first. So so I understand the concerns that some of the residents have mentioned of, okay, who goes, and does that stop sign, what is that really doing? And again, I do understand that whenever we make changes within, with the traffic patterns, there's always a period of room. But then who goes first? We get there at the same time. Is it east-west? Does east go first? Does west go? East-west, sorry. Right?
I mean, it's like
It's the same thing as the yield.
Yeah.
It's like any always stop, right? So when you have an always stop condition, it's who gets there first, right? And the hope is that folks will follow that courtesy and follow the rules of the road when they approach the stop sign.
People aren't going to stop for the stop
Excuse
sign.
me. Let's let staff answer the commissioner's question.
It's still a challenge, Commissioner Ivanko. I mean, you're going to rely on some sort of other signal. I've come across here during the yield condition when people are, I came up at the same time and people will flash, hey, you go through, or you just sit there and you wait the extra beat and someone figures it out.
Right, right. And now thank you for your responses. I appreciate this. And now to the comments about, is this permanent? Is this necessary to be 2 stop signs? Is there a way to look at this? Because I noted, as you also stated, that we've gone from 1,300 vehicles to 2,500 vehicles because of this detour. This detour, it is what it is. It's temporary. It will change. Once Champlain Parkway opens, is there a way to reevaluate the need of the stop sign and go back to a yield sign? Or once this is in, it really then has to follow certain kind of processes before it's removed?
I mean,
or
I think
reconsidered?
like any sign, like any stop condition or any traffic signal in the city of Burlington, we can reevaluate. As I said earlier, we'll monitor the site condition once Champlain Parkway is complete and traffic volumes kind of settle into what the normal condition is. We can do site visits, do what we've done in this case, and make an adjustment based on what those existing site conditions are. I hesitate to say this is some temporary condition because no one can predict what those conditions will be in the future. We have to go off of what those conditions will be when those future conditions occur.
Okay. So the call for the stop signs is a safety issue to deal with the twofold increase in vehicular traffic, to avoid, frustrate whatever we want about people in cars. That's part of it, but really to hopefully mitigate crashes in the long run with this increase in volume. And then we can look at this once the Champlain Parkway is open, Pine Street's open, and there's a period after it's open where we feel like there's some sort of normalcy in the traffic flow. Is that my understanding?
Done.
I can't see Laura.
I know.
Travis, move her.
Yes, that's what we could do if that's what you guys ask of us, to study it that way. We do have a lot of data collection to do as soon as the parkway opens, so I hesitate to volunteer for a lot of extra work, but if that's what you guys want after your discussion tonight, that's what we could do.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your responses. I appreciate it. That's all.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Davis?
So first I want to thank people that came here. I know you're spending your valuable time to be here and talk about these things. And so is the department staff. I think this is a really thorny issue that the current situation has similar issues with it as the 2 stop signs, because there's uncertainty about you approach it at the same time. So what's going to happen? It seems like from the records, there isn't a huge safety concern with either approach, in the sense that there aren't a lot of wrecks happening because people slow down. It's a lot of frustration, I think, more than it is wrecks. I think my predilection is for things that are clear for everyone, no matter where they're coming from or what they're used to. I do not like it being a 1-lane bridge, but that is what we have. I don't think anyone wants it to be a 1-lane bridge. So it's kind of working with the hand we're dealt. One question that I have, and this may be difficult to answer, is in terms of, so volumes increased from 1,500 to 2,500, is that correct?
That's the easiest way to put it, but yeah.
Yeah. So within that, I'm curious about the concentration, like the distribution of the times, how many vehicles are coming. And then I'm further interested in how many are going one way, how many are going the other way. You may not have answers to that, but I'm just curious about that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that could inform, well, I guess it could inform, I suspect it doesn't, because otherwise you would have come with a different proposal. If it was like all but one car goes one way, you'd say, okay, well, do it some other way. So like, I guess it would just kind of be more showing that you've done your homework, but I know that you have done your homework. Yeah, I've thought about, because I drive on this fairly often. So I've had weird situations. I've not had like anyone be aggressive, but I've driven on this bridge, and I know what it's like. I've thought about like, would reducing the speed help? But you've talked about that. Thought about like really aggressive speed bumps like somewhere beforehand, but I suspect people would hate that even more than the stop signs. Personally, I like stop signs because they're really clear, and yields, I feel like yes, people might disregard stop signs. I feel like people much more frequently disregard yields. That's just my own opinion. That's based on no data whatsoever. So I guess if traffic conditions changed in the future, just this hypothetical, if we assumed that the distribution of traffic was going to change in such a way that this would be the degree of an issue it was before the Champlain Parkway was started, is the expectation that it would again be 2 yield signs? Or I guess another way to put that is it possible that it was always like better to be 2 stop signs? Or is it that we are kind of in this period that invites, like this volatility has invited something else?
So DPW had visited this question in 2008 because the higher volumes had pushed people into it. It's in the scoping study recommendation for the bridge to consider it. Once you hit this volume, you really can't go any higher keeping it a yield sign. If our volumes that we had studied this for this event and also in answering other questions for the Parkway had come back higher than 2,500, we would have been here sooner with a stop sign recommendation. I think for me personally, we're talking about our feelings on this. What pushes me over the edge for the engineering recommendation is that a stop sign is an expected condition. So as 2 people from the same direction approach the structure and one from the other direction, you know that all 3 vehicles are going to have to come to a stop. So you know that the car in front of you is stopping, that you will then need to stop, and you are not surprised when they choose to stop to try to yield to the oncoming car, and then you're too close. So this creates a more expected condition for all of the users on the bridge, and I keep that in mind because the pedestrian facilities that are out there are not the best that exist in the city, and it's a challenge that we share with South Burlington to move pedestrians across the structure. And so it really was kind of there's enough people that were asking us to make a change. There's enough data that supports us moving towards this change, and I do think it's the right step at this point in time while we have the increased volumes on this road.
As far as what we do in the future, we'll have to figure that out when we get there.
Yeah, the reason I was defining the hypothetical in this way is because if it was always the case that 2 stop signs made more sense, then I think this is a different conversation. But I appreciate what you're both saying. I appreciate you providing that context for your recommendation. And none of us here want to disappoint people, so I just want to make that clear, although I think it should be clear, but it's tricky. I guess I understand where residents would be coming from in terms of the efficiency and the times that there isn't much traffic. So I guess what I wish is if it was a screen that was stop signs at rush hour and yields other times or something like that. But I guess like Well, just to verify, that's not possible, right?
Nope.
Okay.
We do have to standardize kind of what's out in the road, and this is for the benefit of the people who are local and using it every day, as well as the folks who are coming in from other states, other countries, that our signage and our how we use the road and how we inform them how to use the road is standardized.
Yeah, and a traffic signal, to Laura's point earlier, not really going to work, and we certainly don't. That would be significant expense if we put something permanent in for a traffic signal. We don't have a traffic signal that would be a smartened up, something that would monitor and be, oh, there's a car coming, there's no car on this other side, green light for you, red light for you. That would be very expensive. And also, the conditions don't call for it. Just don't call for a traffic signal.
Yeah, I was even thinking like those flashing lights sometimes on highways where it's like there's traffic stopped ahead of you or something like that. But again, that's like I'm not an engineer, but I would use the term that this would be over engineering a relatively low volume situation. Yeah, so I'm sad keeping it the same or changing it will not make everyone happy, but that is the situation. So yeah, thanks for all of your input. I appreciate it.
Vice Chair Fox.
Yeah, I had some similar questions to Commissioner O'Neill Vivanco, so I won't rehash them. And I appreciate what Commissioner Davis said about, we wish this could be a two-way bridge, maybe someday. But yeah, I guess just one sort of point I wanted to bring up is that a similar condition exists down the road in Shelburne on Bay Road. There's a two-way stop condition under the railroad bridge there. And I just looked up the estimated traffic volumes from VTrans in 2024. The AADT,
Average annual daily
Thank you.
traffic.
Is estimated to be 2,735, so pretty comparable
Yeah,
to
it's
what
pretty
we
close.
have
Yeah.
in this situation. And so I think if we're looking for an apples to apples comparison, it's pretty compelling. Yeah, that's the only comment I had.
Just for clarity, that's currently a yield sign?
No, it's a stop
sign.
condition.
Okay.
Yep.
I think for me, I echo a lot of the comments that have been made by other commissioners. There are obviously a lot of South Burlington residents here tonight, so I'm curious if there has been any other communication or what has been the communication either we've received or have had with city officials in South Burlington around this.
So we shared our communication on our Front Porch Forum and made sure to push it to South Burlington's Front Porch Forum, recognizing that there are a lot of residents that live in South Burlington that are the primary users of this structure and are the more common day-to-day and now and in the future. We also reached out to Public Works Director over in South Burlington, as well as their capital planning program, Erica Quallen. I can't remember her exact title. And then I believe we also reached out to GMT and Burton, Rhino. Yes, sorry. Thank you. And a few other of the major businesses that are on that street, as well as Austin Drive, so that they could notify their employees of this upcoming action so that they could be informed, because usually employees and business owners don't see Front Porch Forum.
I'll share I am an employee of Quincy Burke Road, so I do travel this particular corridor myself sometimes in a vehicle. I was actually shocked when I saw the data of how high it was. To me, I know it's changed a little bit, but didn't feel to that magnitude necessarily. Yeah, that's additional commentary. Any other commissioner questions? Yes, Commissioner Hayes.
Just ask a clarifying question about the numbers. You said the 2,500 threshold. So, and you talked about the previous 2008 study. If it were under that, a yield sign would be more in line with what you would recommend. But because it hits this kind of threshold is why you're recommending a stop sign. And had it been way over, it would have been very clear that that was the direction things should go. But because of where it is, it's kind of teetering on, it could go either way. But then your expert opinion is that it should be a stop sign.
So Engineering recommendations is that a lower volume, yes, a yield sign is a control condition that you can consider. There's other factors that go into it, such as line of sight, and other kind of geometry and surrounding environmental conditions. For this bridge in particular, it is a little longer, and that weighs into trying to not push the threshold. So at 2,500 vehicles, if it was behaving better and we weren't receiving so many complaints and concerns, we could probably keep it as a yield sign. But going higher, and to Commissioner Fox's point, very similar conditions nearby have stop signs at one-way structures like this. If it comes back down, we were still receiving concerns and complaints about folks who are using this bridge, mostly from the pedestrian-orientated side of getting vehicles to acknowledge that they may be on the bridge or on the overhanging cantilevered portion of the sidewalk, and struggling with the share of the road concept. Now we are currently receiving the concerns from vehicle versus vehicle behavior. And so the uptick in the comments and the concerns is an indication that the condition has changed enough that you're coming closer to potential accidents and incidents. And given the lack of pedestrian facilities out there, we don't want to see that.
And I walk on that little side part, and while it's overgrown sometimes, it's definitely walkable. I mean, it's functional and it works, and people can still drive at the same time. At least that's my.
And we widened that in
experience.
2020 when we paved the road specifically because of that concern, but that is as far as that we can go with the city's property line.
Okay, and so when conditions change in, say, 5 months and the volumes go down dramatically, even probably, my assumption would be lower than what we saw before, because you are going to have a lot of people who are just going to be using the parkway. And are you, and I couldn't estimate or guesstimate what that would be, but would you still think a stop sign will be warranted there with the much lower volumes? And I guess I just don't know the history here of whether we installing stop signs and taking them away. That's not a thing where I've come from, and it's usually pretty difficult to do.
It feels a lot like a construction condition, but there's not really a provision for us to do this as a construction detour. And because it doesn't trigger the actual warrant for needing a stop sign, we're in this kind of gray
So it doesn't
area.
trigger a warrant for needing a stop sign?
It doesn't require it, no.
Okay. Thank you.
But it is.
I know,
Yeah.
I
For all the
hear
reasons
everything.
we're recommending
And I
it.
don't mean to,
Yeah.
I really appreciate the thought, and obviously this is what you do. So I thank you for taking a look at it.
We'll definitely assess in the future, once Champlain Parkway is constructed, what the appropriate condition should be. We'll look at it.
Could I
Commissioner
ask something else? Sorry to take more time. And I guess I will admit that I use this area to go to Hannaford, like avoiding Shelburne Road. So I'm probably one of the people that residents do not want using the bridge. So kind of with that in part, and to address another public comment that I forgot to address, I guess a potential alternative here could be divert traffic away from this area through some other means. I don't know if they're basically, I don't even know if just asking people, hey, don't use this bridge if you don't need to, might
If a
be
route is
something
open.
useful. What's that?
If a network, it's network connectivity, it's opportunities for folks to get places. If there's a way for folks to get through, there's no way that we can prevent them, other than like a mode filter of some kind for pedestrians and bicyclists, but can't keep cars out.
Is there a way to like lie to Google Maps or
Yeah,
something?
No,
I'm
you
assuming
can't.
not.
And I've tried. They stole our main street, gave it to a different town. But we understand, and it is certainly, changes very hard. This is maybe a short term, and maybe we will change it, and everyone will go, this was the thing that this bridge needed, and I feel much safer. And we just don't know until you try it at some point. I get it. Everybody is struggling with the decision, and we waited all summer internally at DPW, and there was another onslaught of outreach again in the September timeframe, and it was just, this is the time.
Yeah, I would acknowledge that too. I mean, if I was a local resident and I was used to yield condition and, there were local norms that, I was experiencing, I would probably have the same frustrations that they do. So I would acknowledge that. Their perspective makes sense under the lower volumes with mostly local users. But change, this is our recommendation.
Gotcha. Yeah, thank you. And I think, like, as much as I would like to, relying on the kindness of others as little as possible seems to be the best way forward at the moment. So not just with this, but so yeah, I get where you're coming from. I guess I would just say to the public, I will stop using this bridge when I do not need to, and maybe that will be one less vehicle. Anyway, yeah, thank you all very much.
Great. I think it's time. Commissioner Barr?
Just want to add one more thing. I'm curious if we had thought about making this a pilot program, not necessarily with the intent of changing it back, but just call it a pilot program, and then once the parkway opens up again, reevaluate.
I don't think that's
the
right direction to go. I wouldn't recommend doing that.
Okay.
I would add that I think maybe, or not add, I would suggest that I think in similar to other past difficult decisions that the commission has had, that the motion at least maybe acknowledge that when the parkway is completed, that there's some sort of putting that in the work plan of the department to reevaluate it so that it's there and it's on the record.
Okay.
Should the commission approve it.
Because we throw pilot programs around quite a bit. I know. Thought I'd throw it out.
With that, we'll call an action or vote on this particular item. Commissioner O'Neill Vivanco, looks like you were off mic. Would you like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve staff's language on this with the addition that staff will collect data on the stop signs and traffic volumes once the parkway opens. Is that going to be clear enough, Director Spencer?
I think it is, yes.
Okay.
Would we want to provide like a time frame for that, just to make it extra clear?
Well, we don't know when.
We don't know when it's going to be open.
Well,
so
right.
Is it within
That's what I'm saying.
5 to 6 months of it opening, so that traffic and traffic patterns normalize? Because it's also going to depend on what time of year it opens, if everything goes according to plan. So I don't know. Director Spencer is 5 months, 6 months?
I do
Laura,
think
what do
the
you think?
5 to 6 months is a reasonable time period. We expect late spring that the parkway will start taking traffic as part of its test. And then asking to collect data 3 to 6 months after the parkway has at least opened to traffic, even if the parkway is testing, allows other side streets to start to normalize. So within 6
Okay, so
months.
that-
Yep, within 6 months. Great.
Okay.
With that,
Thank you.
With that motion, a second.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye for myself. Any nays?
Nay.
No.
No. The ayes have it, 5 to 2. Thank you.
You all.
Moving on to agenda item 5. Assume Chapin, you are taking this?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Division Director Lee Perry's out, so I am the face of our recycling program for this evening. In your packet added today, earlier this morning, was a memo from me around the status of our recycling program. And apologize for the late submission, but we didn't get the bids for the second round until Friday afternoon. And some work early this week, we were able to pull everything together for today. So I'll walk through the highlights of the memo, and our goal today is to get your feedback and general direction. We do not have a recommendation as to whether to contract out for 7 years or to keep recycling for the foreseeable future. But we want to hear from you to inform that decision, and our plan is to bring a recommended proposal to the Transportation, Energy, and Utilities Committee next week. So your input tonight is very valuable. We put this originally out to bid for a 3- and 5-year term and did not get competitive bids. And that information in detail is in the packet. The contractors, haulers in the area felt that the term was too short, the scope of work was small, and the initiation window was too short because we were asking them to set up a service in a couple of months. So with that feedback, we went back to the council and said we'd like to put out a 7-year contract term. There was some concern at the council about 7 years being a very long term, but my belief is that our responsibility as staff is to give the decision makers as much information as possible on which to make the decision. So we went ahead and put out a request for price quotes for the 7-year contract term. This last Friday, we got one proposal in from Casella for $90,000 and $90,133 per month, or just over $1 million annually. It was about 30% cheaper than the 5-year term we had, the only price quote we'd received on the 5-year term. So in the memo, I go through a financial analysis comparing our own operation with the operation of a contracted service. And they are relatively close in cost through our budget calculations that you'll see in the spreadsheet, that the contracting out proposal is around $140,000 less than us operating in-house once we accommodate for all the direct and indirect expenses. So for a contracted operation, the solid waste generation tax for a full year of operation would need to go up 0 to 4% based on how many dwelling units we had, and 8 to 12% to achieve a fully funded municipal operation. The memo goes through some of the pros for each direction. For contracting out recycling, it frees up our staff time to focus on other billable activities. Equipment maintenance, which is spending a significant time keeping our 4 trucks on the road currently, could then focus on repairing billable work. BED, traffic, water, they're all departments that pay the general fund to repair their equipment since they're enterprise funds. The same for street maintenance. Street maintenance workers have gotten pulled away from their billable work, building sidewalk, building green infrastructure for stormwater, repairing sewer mains. That's all billable work because they've had to fill in for recycling. If we contract out recycling, the risk of them getting pulled away is eliminated. And lastly, but not least, is that contracting out benefits us for reducing the management time overseeing this program. While it is 4 to 5 FTEs, unionized FTEs, the program does have significant operational challenges that involve management leaves in my time. And we know that the commission and the council and the administration and the public have a lot of priorities, whether it's expediting Plan BTV walk bike, exploring solar on the landfill, that gets impacted when we operate more and more services. Correspondingly, there are benefits for keeping recycling in-house as well, and those include preserving and growing union positions. We currently have 4 positions, 2 of which are filled. We'd propose for sustainable operation to have 6 positions, 5 union staff and 1 manager oversee the program. Additionally, having us running the program in-house gives us full management control. We don't have to argue over terms in a contract. Additionally, recycling contributes financially towards the general fund's overhead. We budget in such a way that having a program that pays a portion of the city attorney, the Department of Finance and Administration,
the overhead costs of the city are spread more widely. So I've summarized things in the memo, so I won't go through that in more detail, the pros and cons. I will say that we need a clear direction. The challenge over the winter is we've kept positions open to give us flexibility. And I see nodding heads like you've all had the chance to read the memo. I'll quickly say we have 2 open recycling positions and 2 open street maintenance positions, so that if we made the decision to contract the service out, then we could take the 2 existing recyclers and slot them into street maintenance to avoid any layoffs. That said, that leaves us shorthanded for the winter maintenance season, and the sooner we can get direction on which way we're going, the sooner we can staff up fully for the winter season. As I mentioned, I say a couple last things. We are planning to go to the TUC meeting on November 25th. That's next Tuesday. So we will be taking your feedback tonight and then bringing forward a recommendation next Tuesday for their consideration, and then hopefully going to the council in December for a decision. We did touch on in the memo again, as we did last month, on the idea of flow control to ensure that we're receiving dependable income. We've seen with the higher solid waste generation tax rates, some property owners foregoing the municipal service and then not paying the solid waste generation tax and going with a private hauler, which moves us away from a consolidated collection of recycling into more trucks on the road serving the same addresses. So likely either way, whether we contract or whether we keep in-house, we'll want to maintain an organized, consolidated approach to recycling so that we're preventing additional trucks on the road. Happy to go over the spreadsheet. It's a little complicated, but let's do that through questions so that we don't take any extra time.
Great, thank you. Any commissioner like to go first in this item?
I will.
Vice Chair Fox?
My better half is in a public procurement graduate certificate program right now, so I was like, give me some smart questions to ask.
Okay.
So is the potential contract with Casella, would that be fixed price for 7 years?
So it would be based on the price I said. It does have an annual inflator that in their proposal would be a minimum of 4%, or using a recognized inflation metric. It would be the greater of 4% or the New England inflationary rate. In addition, there's a fuel surcharge that they are proposing if the rate of fuel goes up, as this is a fuel intensive operation. I have factored in the current fuel price, which would trigger the fuel surcharge. It would be approximately another $110,000 a year that I've added into the spreadsheet, so that it includes based on the price of today. If the fuel price goes up, then their bill would go up.
Do you know, that's probably too far-fetched, but the price at which that fuel surcharge gets triggered? Because I feel like when
It's I need to double check. I don't want to misspeak.
Yeah,
But
okay.
I believe it's $3.50 a gallon.
Okay.
I'll double check.
Okay. I guess, like, so to be transparent with you, I feel like I am kind of leaning towards this contracted option just because, you know, what we heard from the existing recycling staff, you know, over the summer still like lives in my brain. You know, for someone to say they feel like they're dead because they have to work so much between the recycling shifts and the plowing shifts in the winter. It's just a lot. So that's what I'm personally leaning towards. But I have concerns about a contract as well. So I guess like if the contracted option happens, what would the plan be to monitor the performance of the contractor? Do we have any, you know, enforceable provisions? You know, like and where does the responsibility fall, right? Like if a Casella driver, God forbid, like hits someone's car on the street, is that on them? Is that on the city because it's a city contracted program? Like those sorts of things. I know maybe this is too in depth for this sort of conversation, but those are the kind of questions that come up when we think about managing such a big contract.
I can tell you some generalities that we did include, that there would be a requirement that they monthly had to report to us each complaint that was received, how it was adjudicated, so that we could get status updates of that. We would require them, and they said in the report they would carry the city's minimum insurance. If it's their truck and their crash, it is their liability, not ours, to deal with. And in terms of performance, we have required those monthly reports, and that can then require them to cure. If they don't cure, then there is language about terminating the contract that would require us to then find another approach, which our options would be limited. We've gotten one hauler interested. We would likely sell our equipment. We would sell our equipment if we get out of the business, which means we wouldn't have a quick way to get back in.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
That's a consideration too.
Yep.
So the RFP said something about like the contractor is going to serve X number of units, right? It was like 10,000 customers or 10,000 units or something like that, right? So as new housing comes online, which we hope it will, right? And in a 7-year period, it certainly will. Will they build in a price increase for having to pick up at additional units, or is that sort of just assumed in that annual increase?
We currently serve 11,300 units, and we asked them to bid on up to 13,000 units.
Okay.
So there is some growth in there. If we go over that in the 7-year period, it does say, the contract says it's open for renegotiation for those additional units.
Oh, 13,000 units. Okay. Yeah, I think those are all my questions, but yeah, I'll leave it there. Yeah.
Any other commissioner would like to?
I can go.
Commissioner Davis?
Yeah, I this is great work. Thanks for putting this together. Like Commissioner Fox said, I think this isn't just a dollars decision because of how the impact that it has on the employees. I might feel differently if hiring was going great and there wasn't an issue with that, but the understaffed nature of recycling makes it really difficult, I think, to recommend going forward, kind of just like hoping it will work out. That's a good point, that we're kind of in a rough spot if something did go wrong with the contract, because we only have the one provider and we would lose the ability to do it ourselves quickly. So with that in mind, do you trust Casella? How do you feel about this?
I mean, I think, I can't speak to the trust issue. I can speak to they are a well-established, well-capitalized hauler that has a significant tenure in our community. So they are not a new operation with an unknown track record. So I think that's what I could say.
And you feel the track record is generally good?
I think they have performed reasonably well with what I understand. They did list some references for other municipalities that they serve, and we will certainly follow up with them if this gets more traction to consider this direction.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know about the references.
Yeah.
In terms of the indirect costs, was there any factoring in of, say, differences in the weight of the trucks of theirs compared to what we use, or anything like that in terms of its impact on the streets or additional maintenance?
No.
Is there a difference, or do you know?
I do not know what the gross vehicle weight of their vehicles are. We would need to procure, 2 of our vehicles are at end of life, so we're going to need to procure vehicles. My sense is that a laden vehicle of ours is going to be similar to theirs and not have a substantial difference.
Okay. Sorry, I had something and now I have lost it. In terms of the anticipated, say, like union contract and other inflators, how does that compare to the 4 to like CPI inflation percentage growth that's embedded in this contract, if it was done internally?
Right. So we worked off the FY26 approved budget and translated that into FY27. Just to be clear, since if we were to contract out, we need a year to get started. So we would be doing a half year in 27 and a full year in 28. So, but just to model apples to apples, I showed generally a full year of both operating in FY27, just to kind of measure apples to apples. We don't yet know what the union wage will be for FY27. Our union contract is up June 30th. We're going to start bargaining soon. So we don't yet know what the rates, the increased pay will be.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I made an estimate increase guess.
Yeah. Okay. I guess like a comment I have there then is that with healthcare costs and other things increasing, the contract could actually be a hedge against increased cost in the future, which is a benefit. Yeah, I guess I appreciate the work that's gone into this. I think I'm leaning in favor of the contract because it just seems really tough to go the other way. The way that I would articulate this, if you're interested in that, to like say the city council or something, would be that the reason, or a large reason for the 7-year nature of the contract, like yes, it feels long, but it's a natural cycle because of the depreciation. So really this is one cycle of the recycling being handled. There really is not an option for a partial cycle creates additional costs that you've already reflected. Oh yeah, cycle, recycle, I guess that's either good or bad, I don't know, for the language, but yeah, so it seems to me like it's that sort of situation. Because needing to replace our trucks, we would confront a similar depreciation time frame of needing that time to make it cost effective as well. I guess I would add that I really want services to be provided by the city when they can. So I definitely, whether I'm here or not, want, when that 7 years is up, to really have a plan to try to do it ourselves. And I forget what it's called, but like the trash and like all that as well.
Full consolidated collection.
Yeah. I'm very strongly in support of that. I just think this is a necessary step on that road. to get there. And with the cost pressures that everyone is facing, I think even like this kind of somewhat small amount of savings temporarily is still something, and is worthwhile. So yeah, thanks for the work on this. That's all I got.
Any commissioners online have any comments on this? Commissioner Vivanco?
Thank you. I'm just going to look on the notes. I didn't get to read them all, so if I'm asking a question that was in there, apologies. One, I do think the 7-year term, not just for depreciation, but these vehicles they're not rolling off with tariffs as well. There's a lead time to go ahead and purchase them. I do think it's important to follow up with other municipalities on references from Casella. I mean, certainly they are a big name in waste management in the Northeast. They're certainly well known and reputable, but we do want to get a sense of the service for recycling from other munis. Question, will we, and this is where I didn't read the notes, will we be able to use the Burlington recycling totes? Or for those of us who have already purchased not one, but two, do we have to now purchase Casella totes? Do you,
No, the answer.
do you want my opinion on that too, or I'll let you answer it?
I think I understand your opinion. And the quick answer is that if we contracted this out, the contractor would have to use the existing totes. And that frankly, the way we've set this up to make this bid as clean as possible, they don't have to do any billing. They don't have to manage the totes. The people would still call DPW. We would provide the totes, sell them at the same rate that we're selling them currently, and that the homeowners would still own the totes through the duration of the contract.
That's what I wanted to hear. I wish, I could just ask questions like that all the time. It's like, this is what I would like to hear. Help me. Um, while I would absolutely love recycling and solid waste out of our city, having spoken to folks in the back, I recognize that it's really brutal, and I feel like if we want to be this kind of city where we really value our workers, then in a case like this, we really need to be able to look at this situation, at least in this 7-year term, to decide how do we protect the workers that we have, given that we have a limited staff, and hire this out, bid this out, whatever the term is, so that we don't have maybe such rapid turnover. Workman's comp, I was also looking at that, wondering if our side looked a little low, if that's really the accurate number of either workman's comp claims that I've heard about, and I know it's a lot better now that we have the totes instead of the bins. But I think all these things to make us, Burlington, a more kind of a humane employer are also really important. And I know that's maybe, sort of in the squishy side of things, but I think it really is important that we value our workers. So I think that's it. I think a concern I have is that, we're entering into this relationship, or we have the potential to enter into a relationship, basically a monopoly. And then we're a bit over the barrel, so to speak, recycling bin if things go sideways, if we will have gotten rid of our kind of recycling trucks and so forth. So I guess I really do want to make sure that we get some in-depth feedback from municipalities on the service, and that we have some sort of price controls within our ability, that the inflationary piece is tied to, some sort of metric that we know, and that the fuel costs are also tied to, whatever other kind of regional fuel costs, so that we so that we're not dealing with residents who are now feeling like, wow, we're really paying a whole lot more. So just price sensitivity as we move forward. That's all. Thank you. Thank you for your work on this, and my regards to Lee. I know, I'm sure he's out hunting.
Commissioner Montana, did you have any comments on this?
Yeah, it's nice to have the side-by-side comparisons, of course. And it seems like after you account for the $90,000 from the recycling budget that covers other general fund obligations, that the budgeted costs to the cities are roughly equal. Do I understand that correct? That it really ends up being less than $100,000 more expensive to fund the city-run recycling program at the sustainable levels, which includes 4 full-time employees plus the manager. Is that right?
You are correct about the indirect cost. If, yes, one removes the indirect cost payment, that the cost difference goes from $140,000 down to $50,000. And
Sorry, it's five AFSCME employees, right? 5 drivers plus 1 manager would be the city workforce. I'll be honest, it
correct.
Bidding out the recycling program sounds like the wrong direction for the city, especially if the goal is to move to full consolidated collection, right? I think just the lack of interest from private haulers to even touch, right, this city to actually take on this task, right, is a little discouraging. And the price that Casella fixed for the 5-year term, right, ridiculously high, and all of this kind of back, little negotiation, right, is like tough, right? So I think, at least for the time being, really focusing on taking care of the department, taking care of our employees, making the city a good place for people to work is the right direction. Right? Like I don't think we should, the city shouldn't leave off on an unsustainable recycling department. I think it's a matter of investing to make this sort of thing happen. And it seems well within the city budget, definitely within the capabilities of the department. And I really hope that we could keep working towards that as we actually are exploring a real rational way to go about collecting solid waste. And that's, all together, so we don't have whatever garbage system is going on now. So that's my feedback for now. And I'll be interested to hear what the 2 committee members have to think on the issue and just sort of flush out all of these sort of questions that have come up today. So I'm really happy to hear from my fellow commissioners and all the work that has got us to this point. So thank you again, everybody.
Thanks. Great. Commissioner Montano, I would just quickly say that, in our conversations with the 2 prior and the full council, that the leaning is definitely towards keeping recycling in-house. I reflected that in the memo for some of the reasons that you mentioned, Commissioner Montano. And so it is a robust conversation, and that's why we wanted to get this commission's feedback here today.
Any commissioners on this side have any comments?
Just speaking with my experience for Casella, and I've worked with them a few times through UVM, through the student move out projects, and they're volunteering to help with that. And the fact that they've tried to, I think, move forward with a more environmentally friendly approach to fuel. CNG is not the answer for everything, but it's better than diesel and other things. So I'm hopeful that at least for this next 7 years, if this were to go through, that, if there was some possibility for electric vehicles, anything like that to help reduce emissions, that would be great. But it seems to me that they've done a pretty good job in that field. Thanks.
Commissioner Hayes, any comments?
No, I
coming into this late, but I echo a lot of the questions and suggestions that were already said. And I would just regarding the kind of the pricing and just really looking at the contract closely. The only thing that sounded like it was a little bit wishy-washy, at least what was shared, was the 13,000 up to 13,000 units over the next 7 years. And I'm hopeful we have more new units than that in the next 7 years. And so if that is a area where it just says to be negotiated, that might be just a line item to look at more closely to see what could be built in, so it's not a surprise later. That's all.
My only comment is just to reiterate what I think I said last month when this was discussed was, I think, the commission has a limited scope, I think, in the items that we do actually that we can take action on. We all, I think, collectively are really interested in more sidewalks, safe sidewalks, more bike lanes, more of these other types of amenities. That I think a common comment we make as a commission is we want these things. We also want to ensure that the department is funded to maintain these. We have a downtown street network that is going to become more complicated to maintain, and that requires staff and money to do that. And I think that if we took a straw poll, is probably a higher priority of what we as a commission want to move forward with and want the department to move forward with. So I would just echo that. From that lens, I would certainly be in favor of allowing more staff capacity to do those types of things. And Director Spencer, this was listed as an action item. Is it listed as an action just to for the TUC essentially to say?
Well, it was to give you flexibility should the commission feel, like an action was burning out of this. We don't need an action right now. I've taken all the notes. We've made sure to capture your feedback, and we'll keep you posted on what we're bringing to the TUC.
Do any commissioners have any feelings on whether to take an action, a recommendation to the TUC?
I think showing our support sometimes helps, so I'd make a motion to accept or go with staff's recommendation.
Staff hasn't made a
We
recommendation.
don't have a recommendation.
To favorably consider this.
The proposal that includes contracting out to Casella. Great. That motion, a second?
I'll second it.
Great. Second, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye for myself.
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Wait, just to clarify, right, the motion is just accepting this communication?
No, incorrect. The motion is to make a preference for the contracted out service proposal that staff outlined. In the communication to the TUC.
Right, the Public Works Commission recommends that the TUC. I was listening, but.
That the Public
No.
Works Commission recommends that TUC move forward with the contracted services option that staff has laid out.
No.
Okay, so your vote is no for that.
Correct.
Okay, great.
So what was the final vote?
6-1.
Okay. Thank you. We'll keep you posted.
Moving on to agenda item 6, paving program update.
Hi, I'm Jack Keller. I'm a Public Works Transportation Engineer, and I'm the supervisor for the city paving program. Sorry, 1 second as I try to pull up a presentation. So this will just be a kind of an overview of our paving program, kind of where we're at right now and our processes.
Given the time, expediency would be.
Okay, expediently. So the paving program, we do mill and fill street repaving and street maintenance. Along with that comes installing traffic features, line striping, structure adjustment, and updating sidewalk ramps and crosswalks within the project limits. Our overarching goal with the paving program is essentially to maintain the pavement of city streets at serviceable conditions. We use a metric called Pavement Condition Index, or PCI, which I'll talk about a little more in a few minutes. But our goal is to maintain a PCI of over 55 on arterial streets, which are kind of primary streets like Pearl or Battery, greater than 40 on secondary or collector streets such as Maple or King, and over 30 on tertiary streets like Green or Walnut in the city. In order to do this, and based on our 96 miles of accepted streets and their anticipated lifespans in the city, we should be resurfacing approximately 4.1 miles of city streets annually. We are currently far below that, but that's our goal. We also do work to extend the lifespan of city streets with preventative maintenance like crack sealing and patch paving. And then within that framework, we also identify opportunities for grant funding and coordinate with other city transportation projects and other departments in order to optimize efficiency. This is just a table breaking down how we arrived at that 4.1 miles a year for a goal based on the mileage of each classification of street and their anticipated lifespan based on kind of usage. So every year we need to select a list of streets to pave or to repave. And we do this with a data-driven street selection using the Pavement Condition Index, PCI, as I said earlier. And so this is just an assessment of a roadway condition that quantifies it from 0 to 100, with 100 being a perfect new roadway surface. And they're calculated each year by the CCRPC, which is the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. And they assess our roads, all the roads in the city, every 3 years. And then we also check those with DPW staff because sometimes there's some inconsistencies. So we start in our selection process by essentially prioritizing based on the PCI. So we'll choose the lowest ones. And then after that, we'll prioritize based on street classification. So primary and secondary streets, which see higher traffic, more wear and tear, and serve a higher population, are typically prioritized over small residential streets. I heard somebody earlier say that those were extended driveways. Not necessarily true, but they see much less traffic. So we also, a big thing that'll play into our selection is project coordination. So often there will be, every year we share our list with DPW transportation planning staff. And we try to coordinate, and sometimes we can bundle transportation projects such as, you know, traffic calming features or pedestrian improvements with paving in order to optimize cost efficiency. And we'll also coordinate heavily with utility infrastructure projects like water resources. For example, if we're going to repave a street and Water Resources is going to do a full water line replacement the next year, we'll hold off. And we also somewhat consider resident requests, at least gets on our radar. So this is a 5-year budget forecast estimate. It's a little confusing. So our paving contracts are typically based on calendar year when our funding comes by fiscal year. So that's the FY versus CY, up and down. So with the voter approval of the $20 million GO bond this past year, we had $2.45 million allocated to street capital in FY26. And in these projections, we show an allocation of $2.5 million in FY27 and FY28 as well. But that has not been secured, and the final amount available for street paving is still unknown from the GO bond. So you can see that the budget drops pretty significantly in FY29 once the GO bond runs out. And that's based on an assumed street capital tax that's adjusted back to $3 million in tax annually. So this is our 5-year planning list as of right now. This is for planning purposes only, and it's very much subject to change, but we kind of keep a working list going in order to kind of adjust and create our paving contracts for each year. So you can see that there's green cells and also red cells. So green is a paving list that we currently have funded, that we have money for. And this shows also the approximate length of those contracts. In order to get to our 4-mile goal, we've added the streets in red. Sorry, I'm not explaining this very well. But those are currently unfunded streets that we would need to pave in order to meet the 4-mile goal. And this is just continued on through calendar year 29. And you can see once the budget drops off, or once the Go Bond funding drops off in CY 29, the lists get, the green cells get a lot shorter and the red gets a lot longer. This is a link that you're welcome to visit that just shows kind of what streets we've worked on, crack sealing and paving and patching in the last, looks like 6 or 7 years. For time, I'll skip it for now. And this is just a quick visual of what we have coming up with our CY 26 plans. The yellow streets are CY 25 contract streets that have been pushed for scheduling purposes to the spring, that we plan to get done in the spring. And then the red is our current planned CY 26 paving contract. And then blue is capital projects like Main Street or the Champlain Parkway. And that is more or less my overview. So can open it up to any questions.
Great.
Or concerns.
Thank you, Jack.
Yeah.
I'll just ask commissioners to keep their questions brief given the time. So if any commissioners have any particular questions on this. Commissioner Hayes?
Sorry. Yeah, I'm curious about the materials that you're using for paving, and if there are any, I know there might be newer types or technology or something that would make things last longer. I'm not sure the cost association. I have no idea what I'm asking at this point, but I am curious if that's something that you guys look into, other possibilities that would make things last longer.
Yeah, to an extent. I think we always try to kind of stick with the most up-to-date VTrans standards in terms of pavement type and structure. I don't know, do you think we have any?
So one of the things we do, Corey Mims, Senior Public Works Engineer, I'm also helping oversee the program. Some of the things that we do when it comes to general paving, typically there's the VTrans standards that the city follows. We go based on generally what is the industry's expected and recommended design criteria for the actual asphalt. Where we kind of look into other alternatives or other options is when we come to pavement preservation that comes through, where you look at crack sealing or fog sealing, other methodologies to extend the life and serviceability of the existing roadway structure. So we do keep our ears open to new technologies, new options. We have vendors sometimes that come and try to, we want to showcase something. So if those options come up, we will look at them and review them and see if they might be something the city would be interested in exploring. So we're always open to that, but it is not, it's not specifically something that is always trying to look for the new thing. We have a limited budget, and sometimes new things tend to cost a little bit more, and with unknown true end result. So until something's really vetted out and it's shown to be a good option, we like to hear about them, and we implement them when we think that might be appropriate.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners have any questions or comments of staff?
Yeah, not, oh, that's like,
Go ahead, Commissioner Davis.
Yep. So, in terms of the PCI, I'm curious about the rate of change of the PCI. Like, how quick is the degradation, and does the degradation speed up as the PCI gets lower, which I would anticipate?
A little bit, I think, yeah. And it depends on the mode of failure as well. And I think PCI does kind of account for different modes, whether it's cracking or, you know, failure of subbase, that show different ways in the asphalt. But I do think it tends to, you know, the more something breaks open, then water gets in there, it freezes and breaks up more. So I do think there's probably
there is a trend when the PCIs, generally speaking, they have a kind of linear decline as time goes, and then when they hit a point, they do start to spike down. And so, to what Jack is saying, you know, once you start having failures, those failures just expand much faster, and you see a quicker degradation in those pavements. But there are conditions, though, that is seen throughout the city, depending upon the subgrade, as kind of Jack was saying, where you can have a PCI that gets low and it just stays and it plateaus. What happens is you have a reasonable draining subbase that is able to get the water out without having the asphalt further degrade, and you have a low PCI because of, you know, the cracks that are exposed, but it is not a level of service decline. And there's a lot of those seen kind of in the New North End, where you have very sandy soils, that some of those pavements have been in there for years beyond what is a standard lifespan, but they are still serviceable roads with minor significant deteriorated spots that we get the most out of the pavement we can. You know, some people like to see it look pretty, but we like to see it functioning. And so it might not be pretty, but if it's functioning, then we go to the places that aren't functioning. And that's also plays in our assessment of when we add a street to a list or we hold off another year.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And that, great answer. Thank you for that information. And, yeah, sounds like you guys are doing what I would hope, which is accounting for everything. So thanks.
Commissioner Montano or O'Neill Vivanco? Commissioner Montano, go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks for that. It was definitely good to kind of integrate all of the information we've hearing about the paving programs year after year, really seeing the numbers, the different tiers of road, and just getting insight into how these sorts of decisions are made. As we were talking about recycling a little earlier, it seemed like it's an either or is the way some commissioners put it. I don't think it is. I think it's important that to the extent possible, we are funding all of these critical things that cities do, because Burlington's a great city that should have these sorts of things. So related to that is the unfunded paving projects that were slated out for construction year 26, Ledge Road and Star Farm Road. Is there a plan for getting those projects funded? And in the case that they aren't, how would the priority list change for future years, in the case of lack of money and not necessarily construction delays, which might be a little more unpredictable and, you know, sort of played out in past years?
Yeah. So generally speaking,
you go ahead.
Okay, sorry. No, so we have these the listing that's put forward with funded and unfunded is more of again, it's a planning tool. It is what we look at, and we have our anticipated next calendar year that we're going to be investigating and anticipate our funding is going to go towards these streets. The ones that are listed as unfunded are ones that if, you know, the council or if, you know, DP Commission is helping us to find more funding, you know, advocating for the options that may come up to increase DPW's street capital budget. Those are when we have the additional funding, then we would look to add on additional mileage, get more streets paved. Each year, this list is what we initially investigate, but again, to the point that Jack was saying before, we do balance this out with other projects and coordination throughout the city. So these not yet funded placeholders that we have in here, is what I would call them, are ones that we are considering if we had additional funding, but might also get shifted out based upon, you know, hey, we're going to get another, you know, quarter mile of paving. Now, is it comprised of 2 different streets or one long stretch? We kind of might shift that in depending upon where the contract is looking to be focused and where we can get the best price. Because if you consolidate your work to one neighborhood or more work in one smaller location, you tend to get a little bit better pricing because the contractor doesn't have to jump all over the town. So we also try to balance that of PCIs in a located area, in a localized area to maximize the amount of mileage we'll be able to get done. So again, yeah, this is just showcase that if we were fully funded, we would be able to get that additional mileage. While if we're not, these are, you know, the distances approximately that we would not be seeing in the contract on those years.
Right. I think I totally understand. And because the criteria used to decide which roads are prioritized isn't just based on quality, it's possible that these unfunded projects will be shifted out even further and give priority to the funded project in latter years. Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other commissioner questions? The two things I'll say, one, the numbers just feel validating as somebody who bikes on a lot of the roads, and now there's a number to put to the experience. I like that. And then, oh man, I forgot my more real question. Can't remember. It's okay.
Oh, if there's any questions, please,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, actually, yes. For the estimated cost, do any of the estimated costs include potential traffic calming type things that have been in the pipeline? I think of like Archibald this past year that, you know, there was some traffic calming involved in that paving project. These are strictly just.
These are strictly the paving estimations. Generally, it's our curbs, pavement surface, markings, and again, you know, sidewalk ramps as we consider complete streets. The additional features that would come with traffic calming type items would be also look to be coordinated funding with our transportation funds that would go to implement new infrastructure or new in the right of way. So those would be, generally speaking, coming from a secondary funding source.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Moving on to sidewalk program overview.
Great.
Thanks for being here. It's taken
Yeah, it's great.
There will definitely be a quiz by the end of today on all of our work. You're getting a good topical overview. But I do think that this comprehensive understanding is really key as constituents ask you information about how this work gets prioritized to ensure that we're coordinating work, prioritizing appropriately. I really appreciate the time on this.
Great. Philip Peterson, Senior Transportation Engineer and Planner. I'm just here to tee it up for Christina, who's more than capable of talking about this program. And honestly, I'm teeing it up for Maddie Sender, who's the other project manager for the sidewalk program. I'm happy to just be here and participate. Christina and Maddie make a pretty powerful 1-2 punch when it comes to our sidewalk program. They're really good at planning out our permanent infrastructure, the longer runs where we hire a contractor, and also they manage our right-of-way crews for our shorter runs. And I think Christina's ready, so
Ready to go.
stop talking.
Hello, everyone. Formal introduction. My name is Christina. I'm an associate public works engineer. Like Philip said, have been managing the sidewalk program with the help of Maddie Sender and multiple city staff. So tonight we're gonna give you a short presentation, brief overview for the sidewalk program, and then just giving you a look at what the next 5 years are gonna look like in terms of budget and also our work plan. So first, just touching on how we prioritize sidewalk. So of course, first and foremost, data-driven approach. Data was collected most recently in 2020. And that was used to create our sidewalk condition inventory, which essentially calculates a barrier score and an activity score per 10-foot segment of sidewalk. So that really helps us sort of identify areas that we need to further evaluate. Going off of that, we perform on-site inspections. We also review resident feedback that commonly comes in for sidewalks through SeeClickFix or emails that then get populated into SeeClickFix. We also coordinate with other city departments and also private developments around the city. And then that all coupled together, of course, reviewing our overall budget and then planning for efficient contractor mobilization. So you might see that some projects are grouped together to help reduce some of those mobilization costs from the contractor. Similar to paving, of course, these work plans remain fluid. That kind of allows us to pivot throughout the city and accommodate any unanticipated or emergent needs that come up. So getting into our budget, first, I just want to mention for CY25, this year, our average cost for contracted work was $180 per linear foot. So when I calculated out the mileage, future mileage, I added on a 7% inflation rate to that number for each year. So looking at this table, focusing on contracted work first for projected funds, from the GO bond, we were tentatively allocated $1.7 million annually for the next 3 years. That number totals out to $5.1 million. You can see for CY26, we allocated $2.6 million, CY27, 1.7, and then CY28, $800K. This sort of outlines a work plan where we front loaded some of that money into CY26 and 27 to help us reach that goal that we set of 3-mile sidewalk replacement per year. Important note to mention with this is that only 1.7 million of that 5.1 has been officially allocated for next year for CY26. Our right-of-way work will continue to be funded with street capital at $700K a year. Again, with inflation, you can see the mileage dropping off. So at CY26, 0.69 miles, and then going into calendar year 30 at just over half a mile. So getting into our future work plan, this table on the left, this outlines our tentative work plan for the next 3 years, given the tentative allocations we set from the GO bond. It factors in things like inspection, cost, and contingency, both at 10%. And then the table on the right-hand side shows a work plan for CY29 to calendar year 31, all of which is currently unfunded, but we have ranked as critical need for the city. That work totals to just over $7 million. Few things to point out here. So again, we have grouped together some areas in the city, again, mostly for getting the efficiency of the mobilization costs from the contractor. Also, to help minimize just our impact in general to the neighborhoods. So you can see for CY26, we've grouped Woodlawn Road, Wildwood Drive together, so we won't have to come back to the same neighborhood kind of year after year. The streets that are highlighted in yellow there, for example, CY27, Johnson Street, Peru Street, and Monroe Street, these are known areas where we would need to coordinate with other city departments, specifically with paving. So ideally the street's paved and then we come in afterwards and do sidewalk work. This does not include any right-of-way work, this work plan here. So in going forward with this work plan and grouping work in certain areas of the city, we would then try to offset that work with right-of-way and kind of use them to help spread out the work throughout the city. And then also we have the flexibility with them to respond to any emergency needs that come up throughout the construction season.
The term right of way is synonymous with our street maintenance team.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then this maps sort of show that work plan I just presented, but just in a different way, so it's a little bit easier for you to conceptualize. We've also overlaid completed sidewalk work within the past 5 years, so that's all those black outlines there that shows completed. And it shows kind of how some of that work is condensed throughout the city. So that is all I have to present. I will open it up to questions.
Any commissioner questions, comments on this particular agenda item?
I have a couple.
Commissioner
quick
Davis?
ones. How long does there's a dollar estimate per linear foot? Is there like a time estimate? I'm just curious, it's grouped into years. I get why, but does a typical project take 6 months or a year or?
So for this, we're specifically talking about long run works that are contracted out. And for that, we'll have a contract time limit essentially. So mid-April to early November is typically the timeline we would expect that work to be done.
Okay. So like most of the contracts in the same year are going to have the same kind of time frame to be completed in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
That makes sense. Darn, I think I had a question about one of the slides. Let's see. No, I'll just leave it. Thanks.
Any commissioners online have any questions, comments? Commissioner Matano?
Jeff, thanks for the presentation and for the context. I guess one quick question, the actual in-house projects, the right-of-way team, we're talking these are really short sections, right? Really prioritizing like the worst blocks. Is that correct?
Yes. So one way I like to think about it is using this 200 linear foot kind of threshold. So anything under 200 linear feet, we'll look to our in-house right-of-way crew. Anything over, it's more efficient for us to have a contractor. That being said, this season, our in-house right-of-way crew replaced anything from one panel up to on South Champlain Street. They did a 200 plus run. So again, they're really flexible with the work that they can do. And again, it just varies based on how we prioritize with our right-of-way.
All right, thank you. I think they do outstanding work as well.
Commissioner Hayes?
Yeah, does right of way also include like curb and gutter work, or is that different? Like I'm thinking more along the lines of new sidewalks, and obviously there's usually more to it than just the sidewalk itself.
Mm-hmm. So they do curb work, they do stormwater work, catch basin replacements. I can speak to more specifically sidewalk work that they do, but I know they do a lot of other stuff.
I guess I'm asking more along the lines of where the funding comes in, and how, when I was looking at and thank you for this. This was fantastic, especially someone coming in and not really knowing how it's prioritized. This was extremely helpful. So thank you for all of you for putting it together. What struck me, and looking at the new sidewalks in particularly, and maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but does the funding for new sidewalks only come from grants? Okay.
Yes, typically.
And is there a concern? Is there a person, I don't know if the grant person is here, do we feel comfortable with that? Do we feel like we're able to access all the grants that are out there, that someone's spending time on this? I'm curious because would love to have more funding for newer sidewalks and the curb and gutter that goes along with it. And I'm curious if you think you have all the resources that you need.
The answer is we don't have the resources we need. There are about 7 miles of streets in the city that don't have any sidewalk at all. The commission historically has advocated for sidewalk on one side of every street. That policy got reflected in Plan BTV Walk Bike. We don't have significant money to do curbing. We don't have significant funds right now to, as you saw in the charts, to sustainably fund the program outside of these one-time bond approvals that come every 3 to 5 years. And so the new sidewalk is much more expensive than $180 a linear foot. So we chase grants. I will say one of the pieces we're up against is that the city is orienting towards a fix-it-first approach, and the mayor's administration is wanting to maintain what we have before we build new. And so we are trying to make the argument that strategically we want to build out the network, especially as it helps build and connect more housing and development online. But if a project is on a quiet street that isn't expected to get much development, it is going to be a hard lift to get funding for that, because while every time we write a grant, yes, that brings in more money, but it needs a 20% local match, and that local match is going to come from sources where we could repair existing sidewalk.
Okay, thank you. And I am in agreement with you that I don't think it should be one or the other, and working in tandem and trying to build out the network, even thinking creatively about, new developers coming in. And I don't know what those contracts tend to look like and how much they're on the hook for the infrastructure piece, and having to put funds towards sidewalks. Even new builders and residential, sometimes in codes, you could write something in that would ensure that they have to either contribute to a sidewalk fund or pay for extending a sidewalk should everyone agree that there should be one there. So anyway, I'm very interested in seeing more resources go to that, and to the extent that we can support that, I would love to know how to help. Thank you.
May I? So I would just say, right now we're at the beginning phases of Plan BTV Mobility, the transportation plan, and also the comprehensive plan, which does delve into housing development and topics just like that. So I think your points are excellent, and definitely that's something that we want to keep top of mind as we move forward. And to Chapin's point, I think having this fix it first policy it's good to think. Maintenance has definitely been a blind spot for us, but we also have to see the entire forest and not just the tree in front of us. That more housing is going to be more burden on the network, more cars, more people, more everything. So we do have to invest in future sidewalk work. It's a goal that's part of Plan BTV Walk Bike, and it definitely will be a goal for the transportation plan moving forward. Thanks.
One comment that I have is, you mentioned coordination with other agencies. I just wanted to give you, Christina, kudos for, in my day job with GMT, as one of the projects at North Ave and Cayuga Court,
Yes.
you reached out about creating ADA accessible boarding and a lighting pad for that particular bus stop. And so I just hope in future projects, looking at this list, there are many that are along transit lines, and that partnership can continue. Any other final comments?
I have a really quick question.
Fox?
What did you use for the data collection in 2020? Like, I saw the note about like GPS and a manual device, but I was just curious.
It was a little bit before my time, but it was essentially a manually kind of propelled stroller, in a sense, that had some of that equipment attached to it, like the GPS and different sensors.
Yeah.
Cameras. We took photos of each of the segments of sidewalk.
And was that a contractor that did that?
Yes.
Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah. Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much.
It's worth noting for you guys, so y'all repeat it in the mic. It's recommended to redo the data collection about every 8 years.
Recommended to do the data collection every 8 years or so. So yeah.
Oh, thanks for that.
Couldn't hear Laura in the back.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Moving on to parking promotion update. Very much appreciate this particular agenda item.
We know it was a priority of the commission for us to come back every 2 months.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have Division Director Asparity online? Great.
Yes, I am here.
Thank you, Jackie.
All right, Jackie, we so glad to have you at this hour, and take it away.
I promise to be the fastest. If I actually share my screen. Okay. Awesome. Okay. There we go. So this is just an update on the parking promotions that you approved back in June. So current promotions, of course, 2 hours free downtown garage. We have the free employee program for downtown restaurant and retail workers, 50% off monthly rates for downtown garage for new businesses. And then the 2 hours free Main Street lot, which goes through next Thursday, Thanksgiving, and 1 hour free marketplace garage. This was the promotion that was backed by the city council fund. That fund ran out as of 2 days ago, Monday the 17th. I estimated probably a little less than $4,000 remaining until next Thursday, Thanksgiving. And so we've chosen to use an allocation from the DID, Downtown Improvement District Fund, which goes to Fund 265 for the remaining 9 days of that promotion. There was a supplemental memo that I think was posted yesterday. So just an update from last time I did the same chart. Marketplace garage, this is Park Mobile transactions. Marketplace garage stayed about the same as last year. Main Street lot did see an increase in September and October, which is exciting. Downtown garage also saw an increase, especially in September. And on-street parking continued to see an increase in transactions. This is dollars. So marketplace garage dollars are less because of the promotion. Main Street dollars way down, but downtown garage up and on street significantly up. I asked Nancy Stetson to put together some additional data. This is Canadian license plates, kind of just can see the trends throughout kind of our busiest season. This one, just the number, and then total payments by funds for each year. So just some highlights. Main Street lot transactions are up 12% September, 36 cents October. Downtown garage transactions and revenue are both up year over year and also increased from 2023. On-street parking transactions have increased, and then revenue is up year over year, keeping in mind that the revenue is all up because we increased the rates as well, but transactions are up as well. And then both budgets, so on-street 264 and 265, which is facilities, garages and lots, are on track for revenue in fiscal year 26 year to date. And then they're both running light on expenses. So we're hoping to yield more net positive over last year's net positive. So both budgets did better than expected last fiscal year 25. So we're expecting the same for fiscal year 26. That's it.
Thank you, Jackie. Any commissioner questions, comments?
Good news is always appreciated.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Commissioner Novomanko.
Thanks, Jackie, for that. So it's great to see that we're moving in a positive direction. Any feedback in the car parks about antisocial behavior or what we're doing to mitigate them? Because we are seeing an increase in folks parking there.
So a couple of things. We signed a new security contract in the latter part of October. So these folks, Securitas started just a few weeks ago, and we're very happy with them so far. They seem to be, the reporting is way better. They seem to be circulating in the garages as expected. If there's any sort of incident, they call the police, which is exactly what we want them to do. Just speaking with Matt, who runs the garages yesterday, we are seeing a lot less needles in the garage, especially marketplace. Those numbers have continued to go down since July. We have opened all of the stairwells. I don't know if I said that last time, but I believe it was back in September. We kind of quietly open the stairwells just to test it out, and they remain open. We do close them at nighttime. They're locked, I believe, at 11 or 11:30, and then open up before 6 a.m. So we have definitely seen, some changes in the garage, all positive, and we're excited to continue that trajectory.
Great. Well, thanks for that update. I'm glad to hear that the new security folks are working out.
Yeah.
Any other commissioner questions? Commissioner Davis?
I guess I'm forgetting which garage. I think it's one of these. Do people park in from the new development, like what's it called, Burlington Square, maybe now?
Yeah. Yes. So that we've started, I think, in September they started coming in, and we've seen maybe 20 or so apartments that have, it could be more. I don't have the exact numbers, but we have seen folks coming in for the new apartments.
I think my understanding is there's some sort of like fixed monthly fee that residents can get. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's monthly permits. It's the same for everyone, and it's $100 per month for 7 days a week, 6 days a week.
Gotcha. I less to do with the parking promotion itself, but something I just wanted to flag is that as more residential use of the garages is expected, I could see, for instance, like stairwells being closed being more of a problem for people getting to their vehicles. Of course, then their security is also important and their safety. So anyway, I just wanted to flag that. And then I think you mentioned this, but could you repeat the amount of funding, the cost it's expected to be for the remaining 9 days of the one?
Yeah, $4,000.
Okay.
And that was kind of high. It was probably more like 3,500 or less.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other commissioner questions, comments?
Yeah.
Let's
Can
check
you say
box.
more about the downtown improvement district, like what that pot of money is?
Sure. So the downtown improvement district is an assessment that commercial property owners in the downtown pay over and above their property tax to fund what it says in charter, to fund a program that shall include 2-hour free in any participating municipal garage. The only participating municipal garage currently is the downtown garage. But it allows for other parking programs to be paid out of that fund. Currently, we're getting around $115,000 a year from that fund.
And that fund is only for these kinds of parking promotions?
It can be for a broad range
Isn't it for anything like above and beyond what the city provides to this particular core area, right? Isn't it?
It's for downtown vitality. We've been using it for parking programs. If there's a desire to use it for something other than parking, we need to work with the city attorney to understand the breadth of those funds.
No, that's helpful because we are all sticklers on paying for other people's parking, right?
Right.
So I don't love it, just to be frank about it.
Yep.
But I'm glad to hear that it's coming from a pot that is theoretically designed for this kind of purpose anyway. And that's all I'll say.
Understood. We were as well, it was great to see stays pick up this fall. We were expecting that the budget of $45,000 was going to be sufficient. Traffic in the fall picked up, which it is great, but we came a little short. We apologize. We told the council it was around 45. We thought that would be plenty. It wasn't.
You did an amazing job estimating that, by the way.
We came close.
Really close.
Very close.
And I just have to say, Division Director Esperti is remarkable and always positive, and I appreciate that to no end. I will say that the positive news is that we're climbing out of a hole.
Yeah.
And,
good.
We're still in a hole. And so while there is good news there, we are still $3 million in debt in the parking facilities fund, the garages and lots for 265, that fund. So we've got a ways to go, And we know our garages are not at capacity. We're at 50% occupancy. We really need to continue the positive trends that Jackie is pulling out. But at least we've seemed to have been turning a corner.
One other.
Sorry. Two quick things. One is at the end you talked about not offering a holiday parking promotion, which has been done in the past. Was it the DID that was paying for that in the past, or some other fund? It was the DID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I recall that. And then you noted that the expenses were light in the garage. Is it that same fund that pays for the security for the respective garages?
Yes, so 265 pays for all the security, Securitas and the sheriff.
Lower, even though I presume we're probably spending more than in years past for security.
Yes.
Yeah, the revenues in the garages should be around $3 million a year. We're still trying to get up to that again. Security is what, around $200,000 a year out of that $3 million budget. The DID funding that's in that budget is about $115,000. So just giving you order of magnitude that the DID funding is not the lion's share of the garages and lots operation, but it is certainly nice to have to offer some programs for those downtown stakeholders.
Awesome. Commissioner Davis, you had another question?
Yeah, or comment. The new security, I was not aware of it. That is not a problem, other than I think Burlington at large maybe was not aware of it. So if they're doing a great job, that might be something to promote that people might really be happy about.
How do you make parking downtown cool?
Make it easy accessible.
It is.
I know.
But people don't know that it is.
On the cool front, one of the things Jackie and I have been talking about is working with BCA to do some murals in the garages. There's a lot of concrete walls in the garages that could benefit from a little bit of spice.
Excellent.
Maybe like a skate park on one floor.
You could even create sections based on an ocean section and a safari section or something.
Awesome.
You're hired.
I'll park with the rhinos.
I think that's it. Thank you, Jackie.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Director's report.
All right. Given the hour, Rob and I are going to be fast here. I was pleased to give you a nice thorough update of what's happening for the holidays now that we've reached or close to reached winter shutdown for the various large projects. I'll just leave that there. We were very excited to see that the city and our water resources division received Moody's bond rating upgrades, which will lower the cost of borrowing. This is a demonstration, I think, of our ongoing good financial work. My comments from the press conference were in the director's report. And one thing I will add is that we were bummed with Mother Nature this year that we had to cut our first ever fall clean sweep short. We did get 3 days of clean sweep done. I really want to thank staff for pivoting fast. It was hard not to continue with the program, especially now that there's no snow on the ground now, but we've already had a debriefing meeting. We're not going to give up for next year. And I'll turn it over to Rob, see if there's anything I missed.
A good segue is that we are not giving up this year either. We are going to be doing some targeted sweeping. And if you live in the Old North End or downtown, hopefully you saw the post about North Union and La Fountain. I always get this one wrong. La Fountain?
Yes.
Oh, got it. All right. So parking does get removed for the day. The crews are usually quick. So once the signs are gone, you can park right back there. But if it's really helpful to remind your neighbors, remind your friends and colleagues that we will be doing these targeted operations to get what we can, as the curbs still need cleaning. We also will have some limited hours, obviously, on Thanksgiving and Christmas, but we do encourage folks for emergencies, snow, etc. While we don't want to work, we are available, and we usually have a post and information about how to reach us during these limited times of the year. So there are always urgent responses that are possible, especially if they warrant it. So those are the updates.
Any commissioners have any questions specific to items on the director's report?
I have a quick
Vice Chair Fox.
I have a quick one. Are we gonna get the cubic feet like measurement for the fall queen sweep like we got for the spring?
Absolutely.
I love those metrics. That's great.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to seeing them when we do. There were a few of my neighbors I noticed questioned sort of what the value of this was compared to like the effort and having to move cars, and I'd love to say we kept this amount of cubic feet of debris out of our gutters and out of Lake Champlain, and that improves maintenance and all of that important information. So
Thanks. Yeah, the water resources team has really been trying to figure out how best to quantify that with like the best metrics available. And some states and municipalities have looked at it in different ways, and they haven't yet landed on the methodology that they feel most strongly about standing behind, except that what they've been able to unpack, fall sweeping is probably an even stronger component of water quality protection than the spring cleaning that we've typically done. So we hear you loud and clear. We know we need to make the case to the public, and so that's one way. Cubic feet. I think for leaves, we were doing dump truck loads. So
yeah,
you know, anything.
I went back to look at our packet that we presented, and it was this many cubic yards, which converts to approximately this many truckloads, right?
Right.
And I think both are useful. Probably
Yeah.
the truckloads are more useful for the public, but
Yeah, and we wanted to quantify that. I mean, to expand on the point, I don't think I made clearly enough. We wanted to expand on that to figure out what that equates to with like phosphorus reduction, so people have like a clear one-to-one on how it impacts the lake. We're probably not there from the methodology perspective, but I'm glad to know that you found that useful.
only this group would.
Nerds.
Any other?
Can I just add that nice post, Eliana, in the Front Porch Forum about the value of the street sweeping?
Oh, thanks. You saw that?
Of course I did.
Are we in the
I'm
same?
still on the Old North End one.
Okay,
'cause
great.
it's a much richer discussion. I don't, yeah. Offline, I'll tell you.
One question I did have on the private construction encumbrance item that you had in the director's report, there was, I've noticed that the one particularly around the old YMCA property, that lot is a city lot, correct? Behind, or is that not owned by, I know we have meters there, but is that owned by the city?
So there is public parking behind the YMCA lot. The YMCA is private. The 22 or 23 space city lot behind it is being encumbered now, and they are paying for that encumbrance. And then it will be restored as public parking after the construction.
Great, that was my question, is that they're paying for the parking
Yes.
that's being lost. Yeah, okay,
The answer is yes.
excellent. Moving on to commissioner comments. Does any commissioners have any additional comments? Seeing none.
I have a couple,
Yeah, go ahead.
a couple quick ones, really quick. To Director Spencer, just hoping that staff can please communicate with folks in the new North End who came in September to talk about what are the next steps for the traffic calming, the pilot that went up on by Flynn Elementary. So hoping that someone can get back to them soon. Just wondering how we're doing in staffing for the winter season.
2 recycling positions open and 2 street maintenance positions open. Other work groups are relatively well staffed. Equipment maintenance is down 1. I think that those are the major openings right now. So we are a little shy, but not in a dire situation.
Okay, good. And then my last thing, hold on, I'm gonna stop this. I don't know, this is crossing guard, this is related. Christine Tyler Hill, you guys know Christine. Oh my God, she did this crossing guard clarification. She had it on Instagram. If you don't follow Christine, you should. Rob, really, Public Works should. And she has this great little zine on, she's a crossing guard in the Old North End by sustainability. And it's such a great little piece. And she said, "Be at the end of it, being a crossing guard rocks. There's a shortage in Burlington. If you're curious, look into it." So here you have someone, this fantastic freelance artist who's talking about all the great things for her as an individual and for our community. So I encourage you to check this out. And this is like the best ad for crossing guards in my book. Anyway, that's all. Thanks.
Great.
Excellent.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Excellent. All those in favor say aye.
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 Have a good evening.
Thank